Chair, one teacher.
And bear in mind the combined vote of both the parties was 18 million, 1-8. So if we can get the youth vote, which is this 35 million new voter coming in, and which I think is already motivated, if we can get this vote motivated to go to the polling booths, which I think they will, there already is going to be a revolution. As it is, if you look at all the polls, all the political parties are now coming down in the polling, in all the opinion polls, except Tehreek Insaf, which is going up, because of the youth vote. About the blasphemy law, remember one thing, blasphemy law was not made by a Pakistan government, this was at the time of the British. Why was it there would need to be a blasphemy law? Because there were different religious communities living together in villages. So if one community offended another community by abusing a sacred entity of that community, there would be riots. So the British brought this law because this would stop bloodshed when there were different religious communities. What is happening in Pakistan right now is not just blasphemy law that is killing people. I mean, Salman Taseer is only one case of someone who's been killed. There were imams of mosques who have been killed simply for saying suicide bombing is un-Islamic. They've been blown up in mosques. A whole political party, ANP, they have about almost 200 workers have been murdered today because they have been perceived to be anti-Islam and pro-American. So as the society gets more polarized, there is less and less chance of any debate at all. One of the best Islamic scholars in Pakistan, Javed Gandhi, has had to leave Pakistan. He's living in Malaysia because there's no room for debate left. So my contention is that the longer this war on terror goes on, the more radicalized our society is getting. And as for the abuse of blasphemy law, which is what Salman Taseer was really talking about, every law is abused in Pakistan. You know, when there is no rule of law, you only have poor people in jails. My 8 days in jail, I found that I never saw a rich criminal in the jails. I only saw poor people. And I can tell you, in the National Assembly, in the Parliament, they were full of criminals, but there was powerful ones. So in Pakistan, you need rule of law. Once you have rule of law, and with rule of law, you need a law on perjury. Because you have false witnesses, they can get away with it. Which is why also laws can be abused, specifically, you know, I'm talking about blasphemy, or before that was the Hudud ordinance. So if you have perjury, if perjury is made into an offense in Pakistan, you will find that all these people who get in, where laws are abused, they won't be abused anymore.
Thanks. Yeah, hi, my name is Parmendra. I was born in India, I grew up in Nepal, and I've been in the US for a while. I'm a New Yorker now. The question I want to ask, I composed in my mind like last night, and I think you already answered the question in the opening remarks, but I'm going to ask anyway. Imran, आपको cricket सम्राट रह चुके लोग हैं. Growing up in Nepal, I remember having the radio next to my ear, listening to you play. तो आप अब politics में हैं, आप politics में सम्राट बनने का मतलब है Prime Minister बनना, तो आप Prime Minister कब बन रहे हैं? And I think I already got my answer, which is the next election. क्योंकि मैंने सोचा पूछने का एक इच्छा था.
अगली इलेक्शन में इंशाल्लाह.
It's an honor.
A very straightforward answer. Join Tehreek Insaf.
Where do I sign up?
There are nothing.
Can I just sort of exercise my moderator's privilege and ask a follow-up question to something you said earlier, which is, you said the youth is getting more politicized, and you're hoping to capture that energy in your party. Judging from this distance, but also talking to my colleagues in Pakistan, the other thing that's also happening simultaneously with the youth is that there is a strong anti-American tide that seems to be rising, and there are polls that suggest that. There's a lot of reporting that suggests that. Politicians like to generally follow their supporters rather than lead them, and And the fear is that next election in Pakistan, there'll be a lot of anti-American rhetoric emerging from the politicians as well to try and pander to this sentiment. How are you planning to, I mean, do you feel that Pakistan and America are now on a course that they are going to be enemies? And if you don't, how do you communicate to young people, particularly young people, that that is not the case and that they need to, that this relationship needs to be examined in a different way?
Well, look, I mean, what the American policy has achieved in Pakistan is something, which is almost impossible to imagine. That 80% of Pakistanis perceive the US to be a bigger enemy than the Indians. And this was not easy. Imagine that we fight 3 wars with India, and today America is perceived as a bigger enemy. And yet we are supposed to be allies. What my party and my line is very simple, that if you do not respect yourself, no one will respect you. If a country relies on handouts, aid, loans for survival, it will not get any respect. So when people, one of the reasons for this anti-Americanism is that there's a feeling that Pakistan has lost 35,000 people dead in a war that we had nothing to do with. The economy has lost $70 billion. The total US aid has been less than $20 billion. There are 3.5 million people internally displaced because of this war. So the feeling within Pakistan, the reason why there's anti-Americanism is, because the feeling is, here is a country that has paid this sacrifice for someone else's war, and yet it is more vilified today than any other country. In fact, we are now considered, my fear, let me tell you what my fear is. Any terrorist attack takes place in India, in Europe, in the US, and we're all petrified that Pakistan could be bombed. Remember the Times Square bomber when he failed? Was it Mullen who called Abbas al-Zardari and told him that had he succeeded, 150 targets in Pakistan would have been bombed. So here's a country, after all these sacrifices, is even more vulnerable than before. And I blame our own governments for this. Because had we not gone into this war, had we been a sovereign country, a self-respecting country, a country that stood on its own feet, we would not be in this position right now. If it was our war, we should not have taken money from the US. Why did we take aid from the US if it was our war? And if we had made it our war, we would have won this war. In other words, if we had not been perceived as a hired gun of the US, we were in much better position to cope with extremism in our country. The reason why you find this polarization and extremism in Pakistan right now is because the government, quite rightly, is perceived to be a US puppet. Asad Zardari is perceived as a US stooge. So he has no credibility at all to deal with any militancy or extremism in Pakistan. So the way I would, and I have already been advocating this, that Pakistan must stand on its own feet. We must balance our budget. We must never ever take aid from anyone. We should tax the rich. At the moment, poor subsidize the rich in Pakistan. Rich don't pay any taxes. So we should tax the rich. We should balance our budget, cut our expenditures down, live like a self-respecting nation, and then be a friend of the US, but not become a slave of the US, which is what we are right now.
Hi, Imran, this is Fawzia Afzal Khan. You have an adoring audience. And surely there are things about you and about your stance and your party that I very much appreciate, particularly your reputation as personally honest, not corrupt, which is not something one can say for most of Pakistani politicians. However, I'd like to ask you a couple of difficult questions. One of them being that your party and yourself are seen by many in Pakistan as having caved to the extremists, the extreme Islamists. That in fact, while your party comes out and brings out big demonstrations whenever there are drone attacks, anything that has to do with being able to mobilize people against imperialism, US imperialism, Tehreek-e-Insaf is always there. However, when your own citizens, who call themselves part of the Tehreek-e-Taliban, bomb women's schools, educational institutions, mosques, people where other Muslim Pakistanis are gathered, there is very little that Tehreek-e-Insaf has really done and come out and said this is absolutely wrong and we are against it. So I guess my question is, if I were to vote for your party, which I would like very much to do, what exactly am I voting for? Where do you stand on the question of a secular Pakistan where every citizen can live, whether be he Muslim, whatever kind of Muslim he or she is, Christian, Hindu, Parsi, can live a life that is peaceful, where he or she can expect to be respected as an equal citizen, and is not in fear, as even the Muslim girls of MC Girls High School in Rawalpindi, as recently as Friday, were attacked by men who said, cover up or else, face the music. Where is Tehreek-e-Insaf on all of this? And really, let's not just keep blaming the US for having created this. This is now our problem, and I want to hear Imran Khan speak out on this unequivocally. Thank you.
Well, if we do make it our problem, we'll solve it. As long as it is perceived that we are fighting someone else's war, this is not ever going to be solved. Now, first of all, just to put the record right, if you go on our website, every time there has been a suicide bombing or killing of civilians by terrorists, we have always condemned it. Every time. And you just go on our website, you will see that we've condemned every time. But that's not going to solve the issue. From day one, what my party has been saying is that one is a cause, the other is an effect. There were no militant Taliban in Pakistan. Collateral damage made the Taliban in Pakistan. So what were we condemning? We were condemning military operations, not just in the tribal areas. I have condemned military operations in Balochistan against Nawab Akbar Bugti. What was a rights movement has turned out to be another insurgency, which is completely counterproductive. So, drone attacks, let me just take drone attacks. That's the main, we've had demonstrations against drone attacks. Drone attacks violate every humanitarian law. No country should have the right, no one has the right of being judge, jury, and executioner. Nowhere do you have suspects. No law allows suspects. Wives, children, neighbors, everyone eliminated. And then there's never been any verification who's been killed. Because if you read the reports in Pakistani papers, each time there's a drone attack, you always write below, the bodies were charred beyond recognition, or they were blown to pieces so no one could verify it. And since there's no DNA testing in the tribal areas, we don't know who's been killed. But all we know is that it is completely counterproductive. Drone attacks are leading to more terrorist attacks and more radicalization. What you're talking about right now, it's not as bad as you think, it's much worse. The polarization today in Pakistan is much worse. You talk about religion right now in Pakistan on any debatable issue, your life is in threat. The rule of law has collapsed in Pakistan because the police is being attacked so much, the police is looking after itself. The army, they can't go out into the towns in their uniforms anymore. So, saying that, first of all, let me just say that I, probably the only politician who condemned Salman Taseer's murder. Even People's Party politicians didn't condemn him. And I'm the only other politicians who actually sided with Salman Taseer saying that the law should not be abused. Even People's Party politicians would not come out and say, such is the polarization in Pakistan. And if we keep on going on, this war keeps going on, you will find things getting much worse than they are right now. And so the answer does not lie in simple condemnations, which we do. It's not going to solve the issue. The issue is you go to the root causes. The root cause is that we must get out of this war. This is not the answer. If 7 years down the line, all we have achieved is more radicalization, clearly the medicine which we were applying to solve this, to cure this illness is not working. So, again, you need a credible government which is not perceived to be taking money to fight someone else's war. You need a government. And only thing that the US should be worried about from Pakistan is, if I was the US, I would want a Pakistani government to say, there will be no terrorism from our soil. Full stop, but we don't want aid, we want to be perceived as a sovereign, credible government. Only that government today can make a difference in Pakistan and fight extremism. Only that government can stop this radicalization of our society. The moment a government is perceived to be a sponsored puppet government, it is a red rag to the bull. It's going to make this a problem much worse.
Assalamualaikum, my name is Imran. Obviously a big honor to you, sir. My question is, one of the reasons I'm very disillusioned and skeptical of Pakistani politics is that the majority of Pakistani political parties don't really want a particular platform. They really just promise food, clothing, and housing, and then they buy the votes of the illiterate masses. So I guess my question is, if Pakistan's literacy rate, I think, at 30%, possibly even higher, what's your strategy? I mean, obviously, you're going to try to bring up education levels, but what do you do to get their votes? How do you get them to buy into your message when they don't understand socioeconomics or geopolitics and understand the bigger picture, and they're more worried about where they're going to next meal from?
You're talking about the ordinary Pakistani people?
Yeah, the rural masses.
You know, I won my, the seat I won was from a constituency which is probably as rural as it gets, which is Miawali. And until I went into the constituency and started working, I too was under the impression that the urban people understand politics, but the rural people have no idea. When I went into the constituency, I discovered it's the other way.